All right, well, last week it was the president and the president-elect meeting. Today it's the vice president and the vice president-elect. Vice President Joe Biden will be hosting Mike Pence over at the U.S. Naval Observatory, the home of the vice president. It's actually quite a large spread, a large home. A lot of people have often talked in the past that should be the presidential residence, not only for its size, but that it is shielded from public view in a safer location. Be that as it may, it is what it is, and for the vice president, it will be his home for the next 4 years. Republican Congressman Mick Mulvaney joins us right now, House Freedom Caucus member. Two different guys here, Congressman. I'm wondering what this vice president to be will bring to the table that Joe Biden maybe did not, or did. What do you think?
Well, I can't speak very much to what Mr. Biden did or didn't do because he didn't really interact with the House hardly at all, but I do know Mike Pence, and in fact he's already started to interact. Not only is the head of the transition team, but was involved sort of directly yesterday in the discussions about re-electing Paul Ryan. It was actually Mr. Pence, Vice President-elect Pence. It sounds really cool to say that because I knew him when he's here in the House as Congressman Pence, actually called me going into the meeting and said, look, we want to make it very clear that both he, Mr. Pence, and the President-elect support Paul Ryan for Speaker of the House. There's an intervention there that has already had immediate impact, and it helped smooth the way to Paul's re-election yesterday. So I think that's just the first example of what you'll see of a very close working relationship between Vice President-elect Pence and especially the House.
You know, Congressman, I know when it comes to tax matters, they have to start in the House. Many say they will end there. There's already talk that the Trump folks might push corporate tax cuts first, then personal tax rates after that. Nothing definite, just a rumor. How would you feel about that? Or should all be on the table, all be introduced simultaneously?
Well, my own personal opinion is that it's sort of hard to do it piecemeal because otherwise folks think like their ox is getting gored but somebody else's is not. So that the best way from a practical standpoint is probably to do it all at one time. But again, I didn't just win an election for president, and if President-elect Trump wants to push it piecemeal, that's certainly going to be his prerogative. Again, we're sort of sitting back right now in the House waiting for some indication from the transition team, from Mr. Trump, President-elect Trump, as to what he wants us to work on first. We are ready to go. We've already done a great deal of work on tax reform, a great deal of work on Obamacare repeal and replacement. We are ready. We just want to know what the priorities are going to be for the White House.
Do you think that the House and Senate Republicans are on the same page? I ask that because Senate Republicans just voted Mitch McConnell to be their leader once again. And Mitch McConnell's already on record as saying he's not a big fan of term limits. He says the best term limits are elections, and that is opposed to Donald Trump. He's also talked about Mr. Trump's plan to look at infrastructure spending through tax forgiveness of money held abroad or incentivizing that money back to build roads and bridges, that sort of stuff. And that was not a priority of Mitch McConnell's. What do you make of that?
To think that in a country of 300 million people and you have only two major parties, that any party is going to be entirely monolithic is just absurd. There are going to be differences of opinion within the Republican Party. Believe me, I have a long list of differences of opinion with Mr. McConnell, starting with term limits. But those are the types of problems you would expect within large political parties. The real question here is, what can we agree on? What can we move first? If it does happen to be tax reform, then let's do that. If it's Obamacare repeal and replacement, let's do that. I know that Mitch McConnell doesn't like Dodd-Frank or the CFPB any more than I do, or that President-elect Trump does. So let's do that first. We don't need to look for things that we disagree on. Let's find things that unite us and that send that message back home to the folks who just elected Donald Trump and me and Mitch McConnell that we get it and we were trying to fix the country. Let's do those things sooner rather than later. One thing I do want to say, though, is that Donald Trump is going to have to really engage over in the Senate, or else he's going to get a very ugly wake-up call, realizing that things move very slowly over there. And if they don't make at least some small changes to that filibuster rule, the first 100 days could be not as productive, I think, as the businessman President-elect wants to be.
All right. Thank you very much, Congressman.